I was earning multi six figures working with my people. It honestly felt like friends. And they kept paying me my monthly fee for over a year. And I was doing exactly what I wanted to be doing. I was aligned with my human design chart. I was taking slow mornings. I felt like I was just living in my zone of genius. And I burned it all down because when I had the desire to scale from multi six figures to seven figures, I saw the path for growth was prescribed online here by like marketing gurus and business mentors and coaches to just become more salesy and just get better at sales and hustle, like speak on stages or run more ads to some webinar or freebie funnel. And I looked at that path for growth and I really started questioning my alignment. And this did end up in me burning down that offer and building something pretty different, pretty unexpected, definitely not what I had been visualizing on my law of attraction vision board, but it works. And I've been consistently making 100K months. I'm back in those slow mornings. My husband and I are traveling the world. And I wanted to record this video because as the CEO of Dream Life Consulting, where we help coaches, consultants, and experts bring in an additional 3 to 10 high ticket clients every single month, I have the gift of hindsight on business models and belief sets that are outdated and I had to outgrow to actually become a real business owner in this time space reality. But we have become so indoctrinated in all of this online dharma about our purpose and alignment and doing things according to our unique human design or psychology that we're getting brainwashed into forgetting what actually works in business. So I'm going to talk you through my journey and what I've learned in many different business models and trial and error, and highlight what I've learned about purpose and integrity and alignment. Because if you're anything like me, you are a mission-driven person. You might be spiritual. You might be interested in personality tests. You might have a degree in psychology like me. And we're so hungry to learn. And, we need enlightenment in this day and age of AI and rapid innovation and becoming more disconnected from humans than ever. But we also have to put our real life feet on the ground and be honest about what actually works. Because just like Tony Robbins talks about having a sleeping giant within, and Abraham Hicks talks about how you can't get poor enough to help poor people. We need a voice out here on the internet that actually shows us how to put our dream life, our passions, our vision boards, our human design, our just that gut feeling of intuition, like I know I'm meant for this thing. We need that dream life train car to connect to the real life systems and economy and way people exchange ideas and currency and support. Because most coaches and people that we talk with either have one or the other. And I was the type of person who just had the dream life, right? I was in the law of attraction and aligned to my design and just totally a personal development junkie. And this meant that I was stuck in feast and famine cycles. So even towards my most recent offer, that multi six figure offer where I was just sharing my gifts, living in my zone of genius, I was always stuck in a feast and famine cycle. So I got to multi six figures thanks to referrals and word of mouth and honestly just my energy. But that meant that everything relied on my energy and my hopium and just doing more work on becoming a better person or becoming more magnetic. And a lot of coaches have some of those skills. But then we have these other type of entrepreneur, consultant, expert who has a lot of the real life systems and tools and technology, and they'll think about AI and they're worried about the leading edge and what's the next marketing shiny object and how can I increase my volume and visibility, and they're really focused on like the marketing strategies. But what I've learned is that you need both the dream life the woo, the spirituality, the art, and the real life, the science, the systems, the repeatable processes. And again, all of this was learned in hindsight, but I've always been committed to living my purpose. So my journey actually began, like a lot of other coaches and experts out there, with my own hardships. And I distinctly remember being in therapy for an eating disorder that at the time felt like, just the worst thing in my life. I definitely did not want to be in therapy. I did not want to change, but my body was physically demanding that I go on a healing journey. So I remember I was working with this therapist. I would go every Wednesday begrudgingly and meet with Wendy and listen to her try to counsel me out of my problems and into health and happiness. And in one of our most powerful sessions that I'll never forget, Wendy just was listening to me talk about half marathons and carrots and calories. And finally, she just looked at me and she was like, "Hannah, what do you want to be remembered for?" And at the time, I was a 20-something obsessed with food, body, and weight, and running and working out. And I didn't have an answer for her. But I said some things, right? Like, well, my life's purpose is to empower people, and I'm going to be an educator. I was in college at the time studying psychology and educational leadership. And I was like, I'm going to empower other people to figure out what they really love in life and go after it. And she just kind of nodded and she gave me homework to read some books. She gave me some Louise Hay's You Can Heal Your Life. And that book started to really make me think about my life's purpose. And this healing journey eventually led me to start taking yoga classes. And I was playing hooky from my full-time job as an event. Eventually, I did become an academic advisor, and I was still going to yoga classes, and I really felt like this is my purpose. Like yoga and mindfulness and therapy totally changed my health and my life. And so I want to share this with more people. So then I thought my purpose was to become a yoga teacher and teach these tools, not just education, not just learn something, but like deep inner mindset work. And that journey led me to a random yoga retreat in Northern California. And it was actually an entrepreneurial kind of group. I was also helping this startup with some marketing because I have these gifts. Like I knew that I had a lot of potential, and most coaches that we work with also have no lack in gifts and passion and skill. And I was starting to tap into my own potential. And so I found myself surrounded by these entrepreneurial educators. I was a yoga teacher at this yoga retreat, and they asked us what our life purpose was and gave us some prompts and some journals. I'm sure you've been through these exercises. I ended up doing the same thing when I was in the room with Jack Canfield, right? There's like the scripted notebook. What is your life purpose? Start it with an I statement, yada, yada, yada. And so being the good small town Wisconsin academic type A manifesting generator achiever that I am, I remember standing up at that yoga retreat and we had to do some like embodiment practice. Like there was this whole like interpretive dance that went along with me stating what my life purpose was. And still, a few years later, it was still about educating people and bringing wellness to people who just don't have a path forward to take care of themselves or to actually feel the type of happiness and fulfillment that I was starting to feel as a yoga teacher. And there happened to be a 7th grade school teacher there as well. He was dressed in all orange and he didn't want to do the exercise. And I was like, oh, okay, bad kid in the classroom. He was kind of cute too. I ended up marrying this person. And he gets up there and he says, my life purpose is to be. Now, this is the same man who, when we went around the circle at the yoga retreat, we were supposed to share a fun fact or something that led us into this room. Like, why were we at this yoga retreat? And of course, I shared my eating disorder and all the trauma that I had been through and all the healing I had tried to do and how yoga was the thing that was working for me. And this guy dressed in all orange, like he couldn't remember a fun fact about him. And he had a buddy there in the circle and he was like, Mac, your accident. Oh yeah, and then this guy remembers that he had a near-death experience where he was in a coma for 10 days. And this was a few years after his own recovery, that he literally had forgotten that he had had that much trauma. Because my now husband decided that his own healing journey, his own near-death experience, 10 days in a coma, relearning how to walk and talk, wasn't a fun fact. It was just something that happened. And he woke up from that coma and he went out to just be and take life day by day. And I wasn't sure whether to be inspired or irritated by that. I honestly thought I would never see this guy again. Remember, I'm just a yoga teacher out here in California for my first time ever. I was about to go back to Wisconsin and just keep on hustling. But something stuck with me about that person, and he ended up courting me for a time and getting on my texting list and actually thinking that my marketing messaging for my MLM that I was also launching at the time was me flirting with him. So that's just like a side tangent about my marriage, but it really does highlight the different perspectives around purpose. And so many of us as coaches and type A woo-woo folks, right? I'm a little bit type A and a lot woo-woo. I really took the questions that I was getting in literature and yoga classes and from these, spiritual leaders that I was starting to surround myself with. I just kept getting this like purpose question. And I did think it was like a worksheetable thing that I had to complete and memorize as a mission statement and then just go real life it, right? By the power of magic and divine timing and alignment, I thought that was the way to become a purposeful person. So back to the business side of things here. As I mentioned, I was a yoga teacher, I was an academic advisor, and after teaching enough pro bono yoga classes and just taking donation-based contributions for my, money making side of the yoga classes, and also listening to students at the end of class and hearing the reasons why they came to yoga, I was inspired to add on a network marketing product. So at the time, I joined this MLM that had protein powder and other health supplements. And then I thought, okay, now my purpose is not just to show people the power of movement and mindfulness through yoga, but also to give them physical tools and products like protein powder. And so then my purpose was to become great at that. And again, okay, now this is my purpose because I had this new shiny object in front of me. And so in this era, I was, again, working full-time, teaching yoga classes, and then hosting at-home parties. Now, you might have experience with this. It feels very like 2000s of me, like 2000s stay-at-home mom. But I was just a young person who saw the potential and wanted to help people. So I started going to these stay-at-home moms, nice houses in the suburbs, and hosting these parties. And again, I was listening to what people said about their health goals or about the products. And I quickly came to realize that I wasn't selling yoga, I wasn't selling protein, I was actually solving problems for these women at these parties. And so then, being the multi-passionate, inspired, go-getting, again, I'm a manifesting generator, I'm type A, like I had all my personality tests telling me that I'm a go-getter. And so I was like, okay, I can actually remove this middleman of yoga and protein and go become a life coach. And so then my purpose was to become a life coach, and I got all of these certifications, and I hired Jack Canfield for $30,000 to be my mentor as this young 20-something, because I saw how he was leading the world in professional and personal development with mindfulness and some of these tools that I was picking up. But he wasn't selling yoga or protein, he was selling transformation. And so then my purpose changed again. And if you're starting to take note, my purpose kept changing. But in hindsight, I even think about how Abraham Hicks talks about the fact that expansion is not the goal. It is a byproduct. And at the same time, as I was picking up Jack Canfield kind of, life and business trainings, I was also expanding my spiritual learning. And again, I just have always been purpose driven. Tony Robbins talks about that sleeping giant within, and I definitely had it. I just couldn't not keep advancing, keep expanding, like Abraham Hicks talks about. Like, don't make the goal expansion, just be on your path. And I started to think about this man who now at this point was my boyfriend, who really just believed that, his purpose was to be, and this like in the moment nature. And so I picked up the book, The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle. And he very clearly outlines how to find your purpose. What is your purpose? And it is not to something that is outside of us. He argues that being purposeful is just doing what's in front of you with purpose, because in his philosophy, that's really all you have. And so I took some of those spiritual tenets into these at-home parties. And that's when I really started to realize, okay, my purpose isn't to climb the ladder and become the most rich person in my upline of this MLM. My purpose is to actually listen to these women. And this is when I realized they have problems that they're looking for protein powder and yoga to solve, but they're actually looking at me for a solution. And so the same sort of things kept happening in my life coaching training, where they told us, you do not have to tell them the answer. You do not have to figure out your life purpose in some worksheet. Rather, you are the guide, and you have to pull the answers out of them, because just like my therapist, Wendy, asked me, what is your purpose? She ignited something within me that set me on my path to be purposeful, to start seeking things other than just my own trauma dumping, and actually start to think about my impact, my purpose. And then, or what might be in alignment for me in this life. So let's fast forward through my beginning, low ticket, trying to figure it out, being a student to life coaching phase. And fast forward to what I was talking about at the beginning of this video. 7 years later, when I found myself running a marketing agency for coaches. Because you guys, every step of the way, I became a coach, and then I became good at marketing and sales. And then I started helping people with marketing and sales. And this is the expansion that should be natural if you are a purpose-driven person. So let's fast forward to where I found myself in 2023, not that long ago. I had built a multi-six-figure marketing agency by repositioning everything in my business and my life to just be the things in my zone of genius. Thanks to books like The Big Leap by Gay Hendricks, again, deep in human design and personality tests. Again, you guys, I'm a personal development junkie. I was just so hungry to be learning these things and expanding. And this helped me with the Gay Hendricks matrix or model, eliminate things that were ugtastic, things that weren't in my zone of genius, things that didn't feel in alignment. And thanks to my network and honestly my own energy of just hustling and building a network of a few people that trusted me enough to hire me as their marketing person, I got to 6 figures. I had a team of 6. And I started to look at how was I going to scale, because contracts were ending. Clients who had been here for years were starting to leave and move on to other things. My team was eager to grow. They didn't want to just keep getting paid the same flat rate every single month. And so I felt the pressure and the inspiration, because I always have been curious. Like, even as a yoga teacher, when I left my 9-to-5 job to go into coaching and protein powder, it was because I knew there was a better way. Not just the 9-to-5 matrix, but the way that we get people what they want in life, and the way that we set goals and become healthier. So because of my sleeping giant within, and because of the mounting pressure from team and contracts ending, I started to look at how I would scale to 7 figures. And all of the online dharma was run ads, post more, create webinars, create funnels, hustle, hustle, hustle. And so I dipped my toe in that water. To be honest, I had already burnt out on a lot of the bro marketing tactics like cold DMs and paid traffic and ClickFunnels. But I thought, you know what, this time I'm going to take a more feminine approach. And so I started trying to build like an open house where I would invite people in to like experience my magic. And then I would invite them to a discovery call, and I would have to really, show them some amazing thing about me, like dazzle them on a call, so they felt like they got some value from me. And then they would go think about their decision. And after about almost a year of doing this, I wasn't seeing conversion, even though I felt like I was following all the things that people told us to do. So this is when I went back onto my alignment laurels. And I thought, you know what? If these marketing strategies are not working for me, I must be out of alignment. I know Eckhart Tolle says that moment to moment you're purposeful. But right now, I can't focus on that because I can't even afford groceries. I was running out of options, I was running out of money, and I didn't know where else to look. So I went to my energy coach and my human design chart, and I started to just nitpick, like, this has to be in alignment. Like, there must be the bottleneck to get from multi-six figures to seven figures must be my alignment. And I was very unwilling to make changes to the offer because it was easy for me. It was exactly what I wanted to be doing, just handing people beautiful posts and writing sales pages and doing the copywriting. I had niched myself at this point into just doing copywriting for female coaches. And I thought that was really in alignment for me because it checked all of the boxes and it got me some initial referrals. But it didn't work long term. And I could start to feel that it wasn't going to be scalable because as I tried to onboard new clients, I was getting all of these weird objections like, let me think about it, or maybe I'm just going to go hire a VA in the Philippines, or let me look at some more of your testimonials. And I was like, it shouldn't be this hard. I shouldn't have to prove myself. People should just see that I'm good at what I do and I help people that are like me. And if you don't like me, then okay, this isn't for you. But because I was running out of money, I couldn't really keep that attitude. And this is what I'm getting to. Because I know how important alignment and integrity are for those of us who actually care about people and actually want to make a change in the world. But because I was so rock bottomy and I couldn't afford groceries, I was like, maybe I have to start listening. Maybe I have to remember the days when I was just a young, chutzpah-filled kid and I would go to these strangers' houses and I listened to them. And they told me, yeah, I want protein powder. Yeah, I want yoga, but I also want this and that and more, and my husband to respect me. Those things that led me to becoming a coach initially. I thought, all right, back to the basics, Hannah. Let's go listen. Let's not just try to pitch what I want to pitch and keep selling the same thing that people just aren't taking off the shelf anymore. So in 2023, I went ahead and conducted 10 market research calls with people that I wanted to work with but weren't buying from me. And I listened. And I struggled because what they were telling me, what they needed or what they wanted or what they would buy was not A, what I had, or B, what I wanted to do. And what I have found in my own journey and now working with hundreds of coaches is that people really buy three things. Number one, money. Everyone wants more money. And that's what I was hearing from my market research calls. They didn't just want a cute personal brand or an updated website. The people I was talking to were so jaded by all of that stuff that never converted for them. All they wanted were clients. And I was listening to that like, well, I also want clients. Like, I don't know the solution to that, but I heard the problem. I heard the pain over and over. And they kept saying, if someone gave this to me on a silver platter, I would figure out how to buy it. Okay, so the first thing, money. And that's what I was hearing. The second thing is what I heard when I was a yoga teacher, and that's health, wellness, energy, vitality, avoiding big pharma, avoiding lap band surgery, avoiding Ozempic. That health, we know it's a multi-billion-dollar industry. People will pay money for health, wellness, even beauty, makeup, right? That's the second thing. And then the third thing are relationships. People will pay to save their family, to avoid divorce, to not feel lonely. This is why there are so many dating apps, and even why this YouTube actually started as a dating channel, but it has evolved because YouTube has listened to the market every step of the way. And there was a big chunk of my own journey that I stopped listening to the market. I stopped thinking about what are those three, like what are people actually gonna buy? What are those three things that's actually gonna make a business? And I went so far into this feminine energy, or what I now lovingly call my siesta girl era, where I wasn't listening to reality. I was so much in that dream life train car that I just thought, no, it must be that God put this sleeping giant within me because I have got to sell yoga. No, it has to be yoga. When it was yoga, I was young and naive enough to be agile and realize, okay, they also need nutrition. They also need mindset. And at that time, I was able to evolve and quit my 9 to 5 because I was listening to the market. But then I got a little bit egotistical and self-righteous in thinking that my energy and me being inspiring and in alignment and doing what I want is working in some way. But it only worked with my warm market, with people who knew me, who saw the world the same as me, who were my people. But again, to scale to 7 figures, I had run out of those people. And so my next option was to go even more out of alignment and do gross marketing things. And so the lesson that I'm sharing with you today is that if you are feeling frustrated that you cannot sell what you want to sell, I invite you to become humble enough to hear what I'm about to say. Now, my becoming humble enough moment happened when I went to Walmart and I couldn't afford groceries. I had heard mentors. I had talked to the $1 million business coaches, and they all told me, you got to make a change to your offer. But I was too egotistical and selfish to believe them until I was broke, until I didn't have options in 2023. And this is when the market research calls came in, and when I listened to what coaches really wanted were clients. But I also didn't know how to do that. So who the heck was I to say, I will sell that to you? I wasn't 24 anymore. I didn't have all the energy in the world to stay up all night and try to figure this out in some dark dungeon creative lair. And so again, I was humble enough to actually remove myself from the coaching industry and eventually find my now business partner, Ore. Ore had never worked with coaches when I connected with him, but he did have a client acquisition system. Something I had never heard in the coaching industry because coaches are just so focused on clients and webinars and posting and shiny objects and coffee dates and discovery calls, like client acquisition system. That made me listen to him. And for those of us who know that we can do the inner work, we have the spiritual tools, we know ourselves, and we want to be on purpose. Sometimes the hardest part is listening. But I listened to Ore, and I committed myself to a beginner's mindset. And I started to study his systems. And I still thought I was going to be able to implement it all by myself, and I would just learn from him, and then I would, figure it out because I could. But I also took some good reflection time and realized that if I keep doing everything based on my energy, because I was like, okay, I'm excited about this idea of a client acquisition system. So now I'm going to go gobble it up, right? Multi-passionate people. We're so easily on the next project, right? I talk to coaches all the time who are also writing a book and starting a magazine and speaking on stages and hosting a retreat in Tulum. So this was my retreat in Tulum. I was like, okay, I'm going to learn client acquisition systems because I know the market will buy it from me and I just need to make a sale at this point. But because I had married this purposeful moment-to-moment guy, he saw me getting excited about all these different ideas and chasing shiny objects. And he was like, is this just going to be another offer? Because he watched me from yoga teacher to protein powder seller to life coach to marketing agency. He saw me change my offer every year and a half. And he was like, I feel like this is just the same shit, different day, where you're going to get excited about this. It'll feel like it's an alignment for you. You'll sell it to a few people. And then what? And at this point, I'm in my 30s. I needed something sustainable. I needed something that wasn't just going to rely on my energy and do I feel in alignment and do I feel inspired to keep selling this client acquisition system as I build it, right? I was like in the middle of so many things, but I did take a moment to pause and realize that all of the tools that I had picked up from human design and productivity and my personality tests and that like intuition, it was never grounded. It was never connected to that real life car. I was always just pouring more hopium into the dream side and then burning myself out every year and a half because I'm not on purpose, or this got hard, or nobody's buying it. There must be something out of alignment. And so, because of that self reflection, I ended up taking Ore on not just as a consultant, but as my business partner to ensure that we keep my dream life hopium connected to real life systems. And I want you to write this down if you're someone like me who does have the worksheets and wants to really figure this out once and for all. Yes, being purposeful is an amazing thing, but it is evolving. Expansion is your purpose. As multi-passionate entrepreneurs with all of these tools to share, we are never just going to stick to that mission statement that we danced around to in the yoga retreat 10 years ago. We should be on a journey of evolving our mission, evolving what we do because the world needs it. And I realized that if I was purposeful, but I was just sitting in my bedroom crying about groceries, but I was in alignment and I knew my human design and I took naps when my body asked for it, I was never actually going to be a world changer. And that's why I have world changers up here with all these other important things to me, because it wasn't rooted in reality. And coaches have a hard time getting this, because I know you have been able to help a few people thanks to your warm market and referrals and your energy. But if you want to build something sustainable, especially in today's day and age, you have to be humble enough to take a look at that real life car. And it's not some sabbatical, it's not some, oh, I was doing it wrong. It could literally be booking 10 market research calls and actually listening to what the world needs now. Because in this new economy, we are going to be more entrepreneurial. And what do entrepreneurs do? They solve real world problems. Coaches who do not figure out how to solve a real world problem will be left behind. So offers like just selling mindset or just selling productivity or just selling one-on-one therapy sessions are going to be taken over by people who hit those big three, where consumers see, okay, this is going to either get me money, health, or relationships. And the good news is coaches can help people with all of those things, but they have to be humble enough to reposition themselves. I talk about this a lot on sales calls that I have, but I think about coaches like Barbies because you guys have so many tools. You've picked up neurolinguistic programming and yoga, and you know how to copywrite, and you could cut someone's hair if you needed to. Like, you guys are so multi-talented, but you go to position yourself like a coach. Like, I'll rewrite your resume. Like, I'll give you one-on-ones. But the world doesn't need more coaches anymore. They need real problem solvers. And if you look at lasting companies, like I have been doing, and even reading the book Good to Great, you'll see that organizations, things that last beyond a year and a half of your hopium energy, are built on personal humility and professional excellence. And this is what they talk about in the book, Good to Great. And I definitely know that we are in an era, coaches, of being called up to become great. If you want to stay good and just keep relying on referrals and selling the yoga classes that you feel like selling, you either stay where you are on the feast and famine cycle or be left behind. Because we know AI is, I can take a yoga class from AI. I haven't paid for a yoga class in 5 years, not just because I'm a yoga teacher, but because I have an app in my bedroom that doesn't require a membership anymore. And we see this kind of, cannibalism, if you will, where our technology is taking services that we used to get paid for. Our robots are taking over. I guess it's not cannibalism because it's not a human eating a human, but please take my point. that if we do not start to stretch ourselves to becoming great, and greatness requires both the science and the spirit. Yes, keep the great things that have been working for you. Like Abraham Hicks talks about, gratitude and integrity and alignment are fine things to bring with you in this new era. So I was just talking to one of our clients who has historically had $60 an hour wellness sessions. And we were stretching her to finally charge high ticket because she knew that she was worth it. She did some market research on competitors and realized she was grossly undercharging for the type of work and transformation that she creates. And so with our clients, we take their Barbie box and we have a one-on-one and we unpack that Barbie box because it's very hard to see what you're supposed to put outside of the box for your messaging, for your pricing, for your positioning when you're inside of the box. So we were having this one-on-one and we presented to her how she could position, price, and package herself for a $6,000 offer. And of course, fear comes up. But my next sign over here is feel the fear and do it anyway. And so of course, fear always comes up. That's natural. That does not mean you're out of alignment. That just means that you're growing. And again, we will always be growing because of the type of people we are. And so she said, oh my gosh, there's just so much coming up and I don't think I can stretch myself like that because it's not in alignment. She said, I've been building this thing inside of me. I have this vision for exactly how it's going to be, and I want to get it out, and I don't think charging $6,000 is in integrity or aligned with what I want to do. And I started asking, okay, well, according to what you've shared with us before, you want to make $50,000 a month. Is that right? Yeah, of course. Okay, well, how is $60 an hour going to add up to that ever in a month? Like, you don't have enough hours for that to add up. And this is when Abraham Hicks comes in. And even as spiritual beings, Abraham Hicks says, you cannot get poor enough to help enough poor people. And so we had to do some deep mindset work with this client to build her conviction and to help her see it's not that she's out of alignment. It's actually that she has a broken business model. And you can stay in alignment while building a new business. Because what I've learned is that the offer and the systems and the science is the bedrock, is the foundation. And your job as far as alignment and spirituality and energy work is to ask yourself, how do I use my gifts? How do I use my purpose to fulfill something in the real life side, right? And so now this client has a total perspective shift that her feelings of alignment should really show up in how she shows up day to day. Just like my husband had figured out that it's about being purposeful moment to moment. And so, of course, my purpose is very different than it was even in that season of building the client acquisition system. Right now, my purpose is shooting this YouTube video. And in a few minutes, it's about leading my team and making my team better at things than I once was. But that took the personal humility to realize they don't just need my energy for $60 an hour. They don't just need me writing cute content and giving it to them because I'm good at it. They need a transformation. They need a full solution. And purpose and integrity and alignment are literally what pull coaches off of the court and have them in feast and famine, broke, looking at people who actually make money and wondering, why am I the best kept secret? And hear me, you're this deep into the video. It is because you are being selfish and you are thinking your purpose is about keeping you cozy and happy. But your purpose is in you to be a world changer, to contribute to the paradigm that's going to be next. And so this is my call to action, is to have you comment below. Are you willing to listen? Are you willing to be coachable? Are you willing to actually rise to the occasion of what the industry and the market and the world is demanding of coaches? It's not another webinar. It's not another quiz. It's not another feel-good Zoom session. It's actually getting behind what the market is asking you for. And so when I didn't know the answers, I went out and found them. I partnered with my business partner. This client we're talking about is having to add elements to her program. She's having to build some accountability systems, for example, so that her clients don't just get hyped up in 1 hour of a one-on-one, but they actually make the change that they want. So I hope you got not just my story out of this, but some serious business reframing. If you are currently thinking, I don't want to grow because it's out of alignment, I'm not willing to increase my prices because it might hurt other people. Like, I hear the most interesting, wild, limiting beliefs from coaches every single week. But I always come back to, if you want to be great and you want to continue doing this work, we need personal humility and professional greatness. And both of those things connect your dream life and your real life car. Now, if you're curious exactly about how these systems work, go ahead. I've linked what we do for coaches and consultants. But today I wanted to give you the honest rant about purpose, fulfillment, and alignment, because so many coaches are burning out like I did without this real talk. Cheers to growth.